Slinging seeds, sliding on into home, throwing heat, buddy, we're going, gone. If you gotta go down, you gotta go down, swinging, slinging seeds. It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time, slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.
Hey there, listeners. Welcome to another week of Slinging Seeds. I'm your host, Kyle Evans. This is my co-host, Doug Adams, and our special guest today is Mike Eversole from Lake Erie College. Doug, will you go ahead and give us a little bit more background on Mike today?
Absolutely. So Mike's a good friend of mine now. I think that's fair to say. We talk a decent amount. Played at Hiram, coached as a grad assistant, I believe, at Eastern New Mexico in the Lone Star Conference. Really, really good league out there. I know you guys did big things there. Currently the recruiting coordinator and one of the best hitting minds in the game, in my opinion, at Lake Erie. Thanks for coming. Of
course, man. Appreciate you guys having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we really do appreciate having you on. Doug, you want to go ahead and get us started with our
first question? So I want to go back to, obviously, you played at Hiram. You went out to Eastern New Mexico, the Lone Star Conference. You weren't very good when you got like as a coach there, right? I think it was 3 wins, but then you went on to win the most games in the conference there, and your offense exploded. Yeah, putting yourself on the map. Can you tell us a little bit about that scenario?
Yeah, so I was a COVID senior, so my senior year was COVID. We were actually coming back home from our Florida trip, and it was kind of like, hey, that was it. So obviously the transfer portal started to become kind of a hot thing that year, and it was you had a decision to make. Do you come back and try to find a way to play, or do you kind of just call it a career and go on to what I actually wanted to do, and that was coach. So easy decision for me. I was already graduating on time, could have graduated the year before, but obviously I wanted to play all 4 of those years. Phil Bro was my head coach my junior and well, I guess you can call it senior year. So he knew I wanted to coach. I'd coached in the summer with high school guys, so familiar with how you guys got to do just your day-to-day with organizations. Got on Skipper's dugout and randomly got a text message from Riley Price, who he's a brand new head coach. Like, his first head coaching season was that shortened season in COVID, so that's when they won 3 games. They start much sooner than we do up here typically. So I mean, they had almost, if not half of their season already completed. So they had won 3 games. Got on the phone with Riley, and just it was exactly what I was looking for. Sure, it was a grad assistant title, but it was extremely fortunate to Riley told me in person, hey man, your job is what you want it to be. These are my duties that I've set for you as a GA, and anything more is ultimately up to you. Because he had experience of just being the guy washing uniforms and ordering pizzas, and he didn't want that for his GAs and any of his assistants. So just told him I was going to assist our recruiting guy at the time with recruiting, and I was going to take over the offense. He agreed to it and just said, I'll take it away if I feel like it's hurting us. And I was fortunate. I never had anything taken away from me. It was a good soundboard to piece off of. And we had won a lot more ball games. Our offense did a really good job, and we just had a lot of buy-in, right? Like that first year, we had won more games. Granted, it went from 3 to 8, right? Mm-hmm. But people don't know the circumstances we were under. We were in New Mexico. Most of the conferences in Texas. We had a team in Arkansas. We had another team in Oklahoma. But basically, we were set with the boundaries of we had 25 plus new guys, no fall season, had to play all of our games on the road in order for us to have a season. Our top 4 arms were fearful of not having a season, so they entered the transfer portal. One of them eventually became a grad transfer to Texas Tech. So we had pieces to even do better, but there was just so much uncertainty with how the state was operating and responding to COVID still at that time. So we didn't have a fall. We trained remotely. We're doing hitting stuff via FaceTime, phone calls, and and I don't know these guys, and they don't know me. And a lot of these new players, they don't even know our head coach in person. as much as they probably should have. That wasn't Riley's fault, but
Yeah.
so in season, I mean, we couldn't even practice as a team. We were like, it was like individuals while in season, and weird. You know, you're playing ball games, you're playing those tight ball games, and it's like, well, that ball's got to get caught. Well, you know, the left fielder's a new player, the third baseman's a new player. They don't play the same position, and we can't practice as a team. Like, so fly ball communication wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
You know, but we did well. I would say well enough within those circumstances. But again, I still talk about this. You know, our four walls, even at Lake Erie, and unless you were there with us, you just didn't quite understand it, what we were going through. But then the following year, we had a much normal situation. We obviously won a lot more baseball games. So yeah, it was a good experience. I was fortunate for that.
One of the things I've always liked about you the most is that you're a relationship guy. You build great relationships with the guys you're discussing, the players you're recruiting, even coaches like myself. How do you build that relationship over FaceTime?
I think you just be genuine, right? Like, we put so much stake into like, oh, gotta win, gotta do this. I need you to hit like this. I need you to field like this, play like. I mean, sure, you know, there's a difference between like setting expectations, but I mean, how you're trying to produce those results with players is ultimately figuring out like what are the problems they're trying to solve. How can you solve that problem with them? And even along the way, I think the most important piece is like you have to make it their idea, right? There's nothing more important in a young player where it's like he's trying to problem solve, and you're there being almost like a soundboard to him. You're obviously giving some feedback, providing information, resources, but ultimately, man, when it clicks and that light bulb turns on, we all know what that looks like. You know, that's when I feel like you can really start hitting the ground running, and you know, you can actually follow through with all of your expectations and standards. I feel like you got to establish that trust, and if you want a player to buy into you and buy into your system or your style or whatever it is, he ultimately needs to understand your intentions and where you're coming from. So I'd rather know more about the person than the player. I feel like if I'm in touch with the player or the players on our campus or in our program, I think we've already assessed the player part. Now let's build the person. But that's my favorite thing about recruiting is there's no script. Let's get on the phone. Every kid's different. I mean, even coaches, right? Like some guys are a little bit more reserved. Some guys, you know, they love talking like I do. And I feel like ultimately you just gotta just be genuine, right?
Yeah.
Just be genuine. That's the right way to say.
So as a college coach, before we get to what you did next, as a college coach, you obviously were in the summer program up north there, you know, for, what was it, 18 to 21 with them?
Yeah, I was, well, as a player?
No, as a coach.
Yeah, it was, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I was like going into my junior year, and then it was actually the summer of 22 I had finished, so I had like prior obligation with the organization.
Yeah.
And then I took this job, you know, here at Lake Erie, and then got away from that. So yeah, it was.
So tell us a little bit about the program and, you know, what you learned while you were with Brownlee and all that fun stuff.
Brownlee took care of me, and I think that was the biggest thing that I learned as a player. So just quick backstory, like, you know, I got contacted by them. The guy who was in that position at the time was Ben Simon, you know, pro agent now, has a facility in the Aurora area, like good baseball mind. But he had contacted me about playing when I was in high school. My family at the time was just not in a position to be able to afford and do all of that. You know, growing up in the small town I did, it was like people didn't really go do that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of different. And you feel like you're maybe a little bit better than what you actually were when you're having those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't afford it. We couldn't do it. We respectively said no. And then it was about a week later, I had lost my dad, and Ben Simon had paid for me to play for the team. So I had a sense of like massive loyalty, not only to Ben, but to the program as well. So I played with them. Loved the guys that I played with. You know, we had a draft guy on our team, Craig Lewis. He went to Seton Hill. You know, so playing with Craig, like, I mean, it was just awesome. And, you know, those guys were great. And so whenever I was playing in college, because those guys ultimately were the reason why I had any exposure to anybody, any phone call, any visit, it was all because of Ben in the program, and Paul, who was obviously the owner of it. But when I was playing and I started coaching, I ultimately just wanted to do, you know, what they had provided me, and obviously many other players. So that was like the big motivator of that. I felt like we prioritized a ton about finding fit, and, you know, looking back, you know, those players still contact me. I'm fortunate I got 2 of them at Lake Erie right now, but a lot of those kids, in a world where all these guys see on Twitter is like coaches leaving, kids hitting the portal, they're leaving as well. You know, every guy that I had on that team by the time they graduated, they're all in the same program except for 2 guys. One had left baseball due to an injury, and then the other one, he had transferred, and he stayed pretty put, where he's at. But every other guy has stayed, and I just think like there's a huge sense of pride in that. None of them are Division I guys, but the fit is what really mattered to me, and I was just fortunate to have a lot of say in the program, I guess. But I think I earned that just by, again, just being myself.
Oh, for sure.
Can you kind of tell us a little bit about how you guys have progressed over that amount of time, how much the program has built since that time?
Are you talking about Brownlee or with Lake Erie?
Yeah, with
now?
Lake Erie now.
Like Lake Erie, when I took the job, I had met Coach Hutch, our head coach. I had met him just from being with the Lookout program. So he was contacting us about players, and then got to meet him in person. Really just loved the vision for what he had. He wanted to kind of be, I wouldn't say different because there's other programs that do this, but like he didn't want to put like the transfers first. He still wanted to value the high school guy first. He's not a big like, hey, we're going to pull scholarships type of thing. If we make an investment into a guy, it doesn't work out, that's our fault. So taking more ownership as a coaching staff, and just moving back home from New Mexico, like I really loved that. And I was attracted to that because, you had a program just like Eastern that they had won in the past. They had players move on professionally. They've won those big games, if you will. And I was attached to the idea of just coming back home, being in a more familiar recruiting network that I'm in now. So, it was really good. But we have valued the high school guy. Our first year, we had like 26 true freshmen. So we were essentially a 4-year junior college. But we focused a lot on culture, just building relationships, trying to teach the game, building the right habits. I feel like maybe we even sacrificed some gameplay just to make sure that long term we were essentially going to have the right habits and do the right things, and our guys were going to understand the why and the how and everything that we were doing. So the first year, like we won more, if you will. We had a much harder schedule, but we didn't lose guys. Like our talent didn't leave us, and our guys were more like excited about what was yet to come. They knew the 2023 class, which was Landon and I's first class together. They knew that was a very talented class. And then, we parted ways with some guys that I just culturally didn't fit us, had nothing to do with performance. We tell every kid that. And then, we won a lot more baseball games last year. I think we earned a lot more respect. I think respect that we definitely deserve. But our guys just understand it now. I'll never say that they get it because we're always going to learn, but they understand it now, and there's a ton of buy-in, and we're just not losing our best guys.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with loyalty being a two-way street, right?
Sure.
You're a very loyal guy. When you make a commitment to a guy, Nate Metzger has a reference that always cracks me up. The former recruiting coordinator at Wright State, now with the Cubs. Nate would say, if I order bad fish, I'm eating all of it.
Yep.
Right? And so once I commit to it, I'm in, and you've been that. Like, you're loyal, and I don't want to say to a fault because I think it's a strength, right?
Sure.
But you are so loyal. But I think players know that, so they're loyal in return.
Yep.
At least that's how I've always felt. You talk a little bit about the culture that you guys create and why they are so loyal to you as a program.
Well, I really love that you brought up Metzger because he's been an awesome asset to both Landon and myself. He's the older guy. He's got a lot of experience, very well respected in your state, right? So
Probably one of the most nicest human beings I've ever met.
Right, that's right. Well, it's always I think it's just like taking a slice as a humble pie as a young guy. Anytime I meet with Nate or talk to him on the phone or text or whatever, right? It's just like you got this guy who has won championships, who's worked with professional players, and this guy's still trying to find ways to just get better. And I think as a young guy, you just got to stay humbled and you got to stay true to yourself and your word and what you're trying to do with your program. So culturally, we kind of took a piece from Wright State's book at the time, and when we love it, and that's just like our players make the rules, and it's in our handbook. Like, we connect with all of our returners. With freshmen, it's different, right? They've never been in a college program.
Correct.
They need to have say in what that vote is and what the rules are, but our players essentially make the rules of, to a certain extent, right? Because there's obviously legality and, we still have a higher administration that we need to know more about that than they do. But we have, hey, guys late, they create that rule. Guys late a second time, they create that rule. You don't get your study hours in, they create that rule. Like, they just create the rule of what the discipline and the punishment is. If we have a guy, let's say, show up late to morning weights, They don't need to apologize to us, nor in return, I don't need to publicly embarrass them in front of the team. They know they messed up. They already owned it, and they're going to do whatever the team agreement was, and we go from there. And all of those rules are found in our team handbook that's discussed in our first team meeting, and we go from there. My favorite thing is, well, it's tough for the guys who've been there, since we've been there, but we talk about our whys. Why are you here? Who do you play for? And every guy's got a story, and I think that's the most powerful thing. We had a guy who just, whenever I first got there, it's like, man, wait till you hear his why. And I'm like, why?
Right.
Why? And they're like, it's just, it's going to be emotional. And you're like, no way. Because you're around this player every day, and he's just like, he's a goofy player, he's a talented guy. And then, like, you hear his story, and then it's just, you got a bunch of young adults just kind of sobbing in the room a little bit. And it's like, you learn to love guys because he's a good player, works hard. But you really learn to love that guy even more once you see maybe what they've been through or what they've had to overcome. And I think personality-wise, I think once you learn what a guy's been through or where he comes from, I think it kind of answers some questions of maybe uncertainty that you may have about a teammate that maybe you're timid to ask. But, that's been a big piece with culture. Loyalty is obviously the biggest one. We're still valuing the high school guy. There's a lot of power in having, the guy in your program for 4 years. And players see that. They respect that. They're there for each other. And I think when I first got there too, a lot of it was just meeting with those older guys and just learning maybe what they've been through and how we can fill in those gaps more on just a mentorship and leadership level. And I think we've done pretty well, and I think that's another reason why our guys don't leave us, and I think that's why we've won more baseball games with don't get me wrong, we have talented players, but sometimes we choose just the better kid that has better fit maybe over that guy with all the skill set in the world. So I could talk about culture forever, but essentially it's their program, and we remind them of that. We have a mission to play for those before you, and you do it for those guys. And we've been able to connect more with alumni. We've been able to connect more with obviously coaches in the state. There's guys in our backyard we didn't even know were Lake Erie alums, and now we're getting to have opportunities to meet with them, connect with them more. So culture's everything. You can't win without culture, even with all the talent in the world. And I learned that at a very young age, even being with the Lookouts, talking with guys like Nate Metzger, who's awesome.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you guys, that you spoke about that and that you guys value that, because I think character development is huge for any program, not just, college, but also some high school guys and summer as well. Because, once you really get to understand and know that kid from freshman year all the way to senior year, it's really good to be able to read past the intro and really understand who they are. Can you tell us a little bit about how high you guys hold character development?
Character, man, I feel like that's just as important as playing. We need guys to do the right things. They need to do it often. They need to understand what accountability actually is. They need to understand that there's discomfort in holding your teammates accountable. You can still be, a good friend to somebody and still have to get on him. There's a lot of power in saying, hey, we don't do those things here. So I think just like teaching guys the proper verbiage, I think teaching guys about the timing in which to do X, Y, and Z things, I think instilling like perspective. Hey, I understand what your intentions were, but could you see how this was taken negatively? Like, we talk about those things constantly. And again, like, I think it just teaches our older guys more and more every year to just have the right intentions. Sure, they're still young adults, right? They're going to make mistakes. They have flaws. Even us as coaches, we have flaws. For sure. But our players are also confident enough to hold us accountable, and that's my favorite thing. Hey, like, your body language wasn't good, that's why so-and-so took that. And I'm like, man, I didn't realize that, And as a coaching staff, I feel like we're able to do that too. But it just gives us a lot of perspective. So character development is everything. How you represent yourself in the classroom, playing for your family, obviously playing for your teammates. We have kids from the big towns, we have guys from the small towns, so not forgetting where you came from along the way in the process, I think that matters too. But there's just a million ways to skin the cat, and I think our approach to it with each guy or a certain group of guys, if there's similarities, right, it just comes down to just their understanding and maybe how you can reach them, and that instills maybe our coaching style into certain guys. We know what guys we can stop the practice and let them know across the field. There's guys that we got to be a little more reserved, pull them aside, but it's all about maintaining that buy-in and that trust and meeting those guys halfway, because again, it goes back to what we tell them: it is their team, it is their program, and as coaches, when you lose games, it's on us, but when they win, it's because they're the best team in baseball right now, and we really buy into that with them. They don't act like that, don't get me wrong, but we kind of make it in a way where it's just like, yeah, man, it's because you guys. You guys won today because of you guys. You guys won today because you guys were unselfish and you executed, and you really value just playing at your home field today. Or, man, like, that's how you get on the road and just, take it from somebody at their place. So there's just been a lot that's been instilled with that, and there's a lot that actually, car ride down here, was on the phone with one of our seniors, Graham Solak, and we're talking about obviously his off season, how the family's been with Christmas break and stuff like that so far, and it's just like, but we spent a ton of time just talking about how we're going to approach this and how just far the program has come since he's even been here, what we're going to do, what to look forward to, and it's just, we maybe share too much sometimes with our guys, but I want them to just consistently stay bought in and value winning, and more importantly, value each other.
So obviously one of the things I really appreciate is like Will comes in here and he works out with Juan, and when I talk about you guys to the player, right, and he just constantly says positive thing after positive thing, and I'm trying to get some dirt on my guy, right? And I can't get any because he's in love with the program, he's in love with your guys' process.
Yeah, your guys' weak culture is strong.
Yeah, obviously Micah is coming in to play in our Christmas Classic Hit Tracks game. It's always a lot of fun. And everybody speaks highly of Lake Erie. And I can tell you from the outside looking in, just as a guy who loves college baseball in the area, with you being a D2 program, I know you're on the come, right? You can see it from the outside looking in. So for a little bit, how do you create that we culture? And then second, what are some things and the reasons why you believe Lake Erie is on such a high upward trend?
Yeah, well, I feel like it just comes down to the recruiting process, right? We obviously have needs every year, and we have to identify. Obviously we got to identify the talent, but we got to contact the guys that are in our network. We got to go see guys. We got to start organizing classes maybe a little early. We have an idea of what we'd like it to look like, but it's just a lot with recruiting. We will share about the vibe we got on the phone call. The phone call tells you a lot about a guy, right? If we're trying to recruit a catcher, let's say, and he's like the most quiet kid ever, well, that's going to be tough because you're like the quarterback of the field. I need you to be loud, I need you to be vocal, and that's something Coach Hutch is always, on our catchers about being the loudest guy on the field. And so I feel like we learn a lot about the type of kid and how it fits the job description that maybe we're trying to fill. So a lot of that, I feel like it has a lot to do with just recruiting, and we got to marry the type of person that we're looking for with the position, the needs, so on and so forth. And then just the we culture, I think, is a byproduct of, like, once we got a bunch of guys who are very similar and they share the same vision, well, now we get to talk more about our systems, how we execute from within, talk more about that stuff that we just talked about. Valuing those relationships, being available, I think, is the biggest thing, right? We're a coaching staff that's there literally all day, and our guys know that. So, I just feel like being available, being accountable, and making sure that we bring in the right kids. Players are the best recruiters. So I rather talk with our guys and, hey, who you got? You guys know anybody from this program that you used to play for? Anybody? And they're like, yeah, this guy, he's a good player. He's a good dude. We take a lot of value in that. Again, another thing, it's just in our handbook. It's just like, you guys are the best recruiters. Somebody that can help us win more and shares, the common goal and the belief system. Like, let us know. We'll get in touch and go from there. But just doing proper, consistent due diligence in the recruiting process, that's the biggest thing. And and again, we mess up sometimes, right? You get a guy, he gets on campus. You're like, man, didn't know that about him, but I think they just eventually become a byproduct of their environment in a good way, and I feel like our guys are protecting what we're trying to do too. So when those younger guys come in, like, they're told, hey, like, this is the standard, this is the expectation, and we're kind of the echo or the soundboard of that too. So every program's different, but essentially we just got to identify it correctly in the recruiting process, and then we got to marry it with how we do things on campus when they're here, and it's work smarter, right? And I feel like we're in a position to do that. And sometimes we're going to miss out on a guy, right? So we sometimes got to marry finding the next best available, and who also maybe aligns with what we do, and so on and so forth. But
Well, yeah, I feel a little bit of a recruiting conversation starting here. So before we get into that, I wanted to give a shout out to our quick shout out to our sponsor. If you're planning a move or if you need assistance in your plan, our proud sponsor, 2 Men in a Truck, is dedicated to making your process stress-free and as simple as possible. They pride themselves in selfless service and do their best to help you in any way they can. Waste no time and contact 2 Men in a Truck today.
Yeah. So I guess the next thing is one thing I want to talk on before we really get into the recruiting process, right? Because I truly believe you're, of the guys working it, probably one of the top two, if not the best recruiter in the state. It's just my opinion from a guy who's been doing it for over 20 years.
appreciate that.
D2 baseball in Ohio. So there's a big mentality out there of D1 or bust, which is the wrong mentality in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know a player at Lake Erie who had a really good year this year in pro ball, Luke Raley, from the Northeast Ohio area. Played for the Pelicans back in the day with our boy Frankie Russo. Yeah. Went to Lake Erie, having a great pro career.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about Division II baseball. What would you say to the person who is D1 or bust that really just doesn't get it?
Yeah, I mean, I think just education matters. I think they just need to, respectively, just do some more research. Our conference is, man, I love our conference. We got great coaches, got a lot of good players, got a lot of guys who've moved on professionally, and it's not more of like a promotional thing for these schools. It's just more of like, it's the realization of we have a great conference with good coaches and teams. Hillsdale recently had a pitcher move on to the next level. I knew Tiffin had some guys a couple years ago prior to I got there. Obviously, Lake Erie's had guys in the past. I know Ryan Mittendorf's still in a AAA system somewhere. Ryan Rua is obviously ex-big leaguer. Rayleigh's still playing. Former guy who had transferred. He was played for, obviously didn't play for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Bryant, he had moved on to the next level. And I'm sure that there's other teams, Northwood had a guy get drafted this year or senior signed something, but got picked up professionally. So I just think, guys, it's like, for the guys who want to play professionally, you got to go somewhere where you can get on the field and you can play and you can actually build a resume of playing at a high level. And I just feel like with the byproduct of the transfer portal, I do think Division II is getting a lot more competitive, and even with junior college guys too. A lot of programs are looking more at those transfers first and maybe prioritizing those guys over the high school guy. And I just feel like they just need to educate themselves, a little more. They have so much access, between social media and just the amount of resources that are out there, how public everything is, especially folks that maybe they work with, train with, players they work with and train with. Players talk, right? And it's just, I feel like there's a lot of value everywhere, and you ultimately have to go back to the most important thing, and that's like find your fit. It's got to be fit over hype. That Twitter post, just it's cool for 24 hours, and then everybody is interested to see maybe what you do when you actually get there. And some kids are often misled. There's nothing wrong with playing at the highest level or wanting to play at the highest level, but you essentially have to be, I don't like saying realistic, but you essentially have to be able to assess the situation in front of you and ultimately come back to like, okay, is this what's actually best for me? And we have that conversation many, many times with guys. But we always tell them, because in our office, Coach Hutch's office, I often live in his office sometimes. But, you have like the pro guys on the wall, and we always tell them, hey man, you want to be a guy on this wall, like, there's a lot that you as a player have to do. You got to go in, you got to get on the field wherever that is. You got to execute. You got to live in the weight room. You got to elevate within your game, whether it's offensively, defensively, mentally, whatever it may be. And it's like, yes, going, the program and where you go matters, but essentially what you do within the relationships and the resources that you have and the opportunities that you have to actually play from within, that essentially creates the path for you. And like I said, there's a lot of good players in our conference. Love our coaches. I mean, we see Coach Palm over at Findlay. We see him out everywhere. I freaking love him. I respect him, and again, that's a guy who's done it longer than me, and I think there's a lot of value to learn from him. Again, just on perspective, right? Keeps us humbled and honest. Coach Mead over at Walsh, another guy who's done it forever. I mean, I had visited Walsh as a high school kid and spent time with him, and just to have that relationship with him is awesome. Coach Wilkins, learned more about him just since I've been here, and seeing him out, for a little bit more this past summer. Got to learn more about him. It's just I don't, just to name a few, right?
Yeah,
Coach
for
Shalley, he's always a good conversation when you get the opportunity to see him. So I got nothing but love and respect for these guys, and obviously when we're on the field, we're competitors and we're trying to win and stuff. But I know on my side, I ultimately don't lose the bigger picture, and that's, man, we got a great conference with great teams, and kids need to understand that.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Completely agree.
You follow up with the sophomore.
Yeah, so one of the things that, like I said, I've always valued about your recruiting is I'm going to say 80% of the recruiting that we do now, and we're a program that sends 20 kids every year to play at the next level. Not all Division I, Division II, right? Whatever fit, right? We're a big fit program. I would say 80% of our recruiting is done from a text or a video, right?
Yep.
You're the guy that still shows up at the field and watches us play a bunch of times every summer.
You have
right?
to. You got to.
Well,
you have to.
A lot don't. So why do you think that's the case? Why are you still the guy who's the old school recruiter that comes in and you watch them play? You watch all the other things that matter, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean.
Also, do you think that sets you apart? Like, I want you to answer that as well.
Well, I just think it's really hard to tell a guy, hey, we're really interested and we got this plan for you and so on and so forth, but you've actually never seen them compete on a field. I mean, you got to separate the guys that do well in a showcase setting or maybe in a cage setting or in a facility setting. You got to separate those guys from the ones who actually play well in game and execute and things of that nature. So there's still there will always be immense value in going out to a field and watching a guy play and watching him play well and checking the boxes that he fits what you're looking for. But you also want to see the guy, not in a negative way, but you want to see the guy maybe have a bad day too. You got to see how he responds. Does that change? If he's having a bad day offensively, well, does that change how he plays defense? Does that change, maybe his buy-in from his coach? How's he treat his guys in the dugout? There's not a whole lot of people outside of parents at these games, right? So the dugouts kind of echo a little bit more. We can kind of hear a little bit more. We can see a ton. But there's just a lot of value in going out, because when we go out, I mean, we already have a sense that the guy can maybe play, but then you go out and you watch that player and then you find another guy you didn't even know that maybe surfaced on the radar. He's this position or he does this really well that fits maybe what we're looking for in the class. So I don't know, maybe as a coach, maybe I get a little FOMO. You got to go out and you just got to do it right. I love data and metrics, and there's a lot of educational background to that, but very, very, very rare are we going to make an ultimate decision just because, there's a 91-mile-an-hour fastball. It's like, okay, well, what's he do with it in game? How does he play with a breaking ball off of it? Our pitching staff has made some massive jumps. Obviously, offensively, we've been able to make some massive jumps since I've been here assisting with that, to Coach Hutch. So it's just, there's still just a lot of value in that. I mean, maybe the video or the metric or the hit tracks or the Rapsodo, those things obviously can intrigue us, but we essentially need to go out and do more homework and watch and then find a way to watch again. And we also have to assess who they're competing against. If you're facing just that local team from, around the corner who everybody's got a lot of good intentions, but, comparison-wise, it's just like, this might be an easier day. Well, we got to have some feel and evaluating that one too. So there's just a lot that goes into it. A lot of communication amongst, Coach Hutch and myself. A lot of communication with our guys even, because they'll be like, hey, I know so-and-so, they're playing here this weekend. And it's like, all right, we'll find us a schedule. Like, it's just we live on the phone and we live in the car a lot. And I know Division I guys, they have different rules, right? They have certain dead periods, multiple dead periods. They have to, they have a different way of maybe what they got to do. There's still a lot of Division I guys in our state going out and punching the clock, and that's awesome to see because it's just a little more easier, I would say, now to maybe just do it on the phone and watch some video and watch some report, and it's just good to see the coaches out there. It's good for us too personally because you establish relationships with these guys, and it all keeps us, I think, sane at the end of the day, which is good. So
yeah, tell us about your time on the road. Like, is it does it bring back memories for you and your time in baseball when you were a player, or like how especially during the summer? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's about like the nostalgia of when I was a player. I think it's just like being extremely present where I'm at right now and where I'm fortunate to be and fortunate to have the relationships that I have with guys, and I'm just really fortunate to, maybe have some nice things said because, we work hard, or I myself am working hard or whatever. It's just good to just be where your feet are. And our guys don't care about our playing careers, whether good, bad, or in between. They care about what we're learning from our situations and how we're making it better for their situations. And it's just cool. Like, you're hanging out with that guy, and maybe he's at a Division III, and he gets a lot of backlash from these players. No, I'm not going to play for you because you're a Division III guy. Well, then the next year, like, they're a Division I guy, and now they really like that coach, right? And it's just, we get to actually know more about these guys and who they are as people, and how they are with their families, and if they got kids, if they just got married, if they've been married, right? I mean, there's just such different demographics of people hanging out with each other who all have the shared vision of, like, we all want to make our teams better, we want to make our programs better, we want to win, and everybody's got their way and how they're trying to execute that. So I would just say it's really cool to just be super present, and you get to know just new people along the way. And it's awesome when you get to see guys that you haven't gotten to see in quite some time too. Like, you just get an extra kick of energy for your day. Oh my gosh, so and so's here. No way.
Yeah.
Like, no way, man. How are you? How's the wife? How are the kids? Or man, how was your guys' year? Followed along a little bit, and then we obviously got caught up in our season. How did it finish? How was so and so? We're all essentially recruiting the same guys, so.
Yeah.
We all know where those guys go, and it's cool to follow them along the way too, even if they didn't come play for us. But we know who they're playing for, and they're still with a good group of guys. So I would just say it's about being more present and in the moment with that stuff.
How do you build your, I don't want to call it schedule, I guess it is, but how do you figure out, okay, I like this event, I don't so much like going over here? How do you build this schedule for where you want to recruit, or is that strictly based on you want this player, his team's going to be at this location?
Both, because I feel like the hot events that we'll typically go to. I mean, we're going to go to the state tournament every year. If you're playing for a state championship, you got good players. I don't care what level you're at. Obviously, we need to marry the need or the play style to maybe what we're looking for, right? So we gotta assess there. We go to top prospect games just because it is a very good event. I mean, a lot of coaches there, a lot of good players. So I think it gets us an idea of, is our initial evaluation maybe validated or not? MPL, ABC, TOC, the NEO select invite that's on the northern side right by us. So there's a lot of events that are kind of non-negotiables we're going to go to. Anything kind of outside of that is finding that balance in what you said. Well, hey, this player is going to be here. Well, maybe I'll go there, and Coach Hutch will go to the bigger event, or vice versa. If it's a pitcher, maybe Coach Hutch is going to watch that guy. I'm going to go watch the position guys that we are evaluating, or maybe we'll switcheroo because he's seen the arm multiple times. He wants to see maybe what I'm seeing. So I think it just comes down to communication as a staff and marrying it with those bigger events. They're obviously going to have good teams there, and they likely have the kids that maybe we've already had on campus and have evaluated and have assessed, and we need to find balance. Again, it's just all done in balance. Balance and fit, and sometimes we might have to pivot and adjust because weather's always a factor, but I think we do a good job communicating that with like coaches and kids who reach out and hey man, we were waiting to be there, but we had to run. That field was on time, this field was underwater.
Yeah.
So just balance.
How do you, so the next question I want to ask is, so like NEO, I'm going to use that as an example because it's in your backyard.
Yep.
Up there in Northeast Ohio. Obviously our teams will go to that every year as long as they'll have us.
Yep.
Because the competition's really, really good. Our 16s tied 4 times last year, and I don't know how that's ever possible again. How do you balance seeing the reason I ask is, how do you balance the 17U, so like this year it'll be the 2026 class, with seeing the 2027s? Because you even came out and saw our 26s last year.
Yep.
And that
granted, it was only like once or twice.
Yeah, but you got eyes on them.
Yeah.
So how do you work that balance as well?
I think you just got to look at the schedule. If you can see two 17U games and then the next 17U game isn't until, let's say, 3 o'clock, but the one in the middle at your current site is maybe a 16U game, well, we can go get some quick lunch or something and come back and watch the game. So usually, like, there's a good fit with scheduling that wasn't planned on our end. It just happened to work out well with where we were at, or hey, we were contacted by this guy. Let's kind of marry their schedule with ours and see, are they going to be in a similar vicinity and where we're at. And that event did such a great job. And I think trying to keep majority, not all, but majority of the 17U teams on one field. So it kind of gravitated all of us to one field, which was good. Easier travel for all of us. But on the flip side of that, it's like, maybe that other field, they have a pitcher throwing, but the game before is a 16U game. We got another coach, which was myself or Coach Hutch usually, right? Maybe I'm at that different site and Landon's going to that other site, watches the 16U team, and then watches the main reason why he was going there. So it's very little planning because we obviously got to make the current grad class the priority.
Yeah. How does that help you set up your board, so to speak, for the next year when you saw these 16s?
Yeah.
Even if it just worked out, how does it help you set up your board for that next recruiting cycle?
I just think we just compare notes and we just like identify what the needs are, right? Like, let's say we need an outfielder. Well, hey, I saw this guy, we're probably going to put him on the board because we saw him. We had good feel from it. Coach spoke highly of him. So, we put him on the board, and now we have, in reality, we have like a calendar year to essentially follow this kid and build that relationship with him. And sometimes we're just like, man, you guys got 26s on campus already. And it's like, well, there's been luckily some fortunate times we've been able to see some guys. So yeah, we're going to get them on campus. We're going to build that relationship. We're going to stay in touch. We want to know how their off season is going. We want to talk with their coach and see how they're trending. High school season, we kind of want that to be the high school season. Sure, we'll reach out, maybe touch base, let them know how we're doing. Even though there's a lot of public information to that, they could probably figure that out themselves, but I still think that there's value in us sharing and maybe our viewpoint of it and what we're going to do going forward. But hearing how their spring's going, because there's still a ton of pride, and there should be, in playing for your community.
For sure.
There's still be immense pride in trying to do that and trying to compete for that district title, state title, whatever it is. Every school's different, and maybe their expectations are different from city to city, school to school. But then the summer, it's like, okay, hey, we're hitting the ground running. Like, we know what we need. We know what we got. Knock on wood. We've been very fortunate to not lose guys at the end of the year, right? So, like, our plans haven't really changed a ton. And if they have, well, we adjust. That's the name of the game. You got to adjust within those things. So, transfer situation for us has to be an emergency. And when I say emergency, it's not like, well, this guy didn't perform, we're just going to get the transfer. And I get a lot of backlash of guys at higher levels. Well, man, it's about winning. It's about winning. Yeah, I get that. But, we're at a Division II program where we're fortunate to value the relationship. We still get to know about the kids and their families and their background. And I feel like sometimes you only get to know that if he's like the impact player playing every day for you. You get to value him, and you have to, because if you don't, he's going to leave you. So transfers to us have been emergencies like injury, unexpectedness of a guy has to leave. We've had guys leave because they have to quit baseball. They got to go home, they got to work, they got to get a job, they got to do this. And but in the transfer process, we involve our players. We have to assess that. It's their vote. We had a guy, unfortunately, and it's not arm related, but we had a guy get injured, and we assessed that we may have to look at a guy just with where we're at. We may have to look at a guy, but our phone calls, sure, they matter, but we're going to encourage the transfer to get on the phone with our guys. And you guys all have social media. All your phones work. You guys can't live without them. Call our guys and ask them, because you just got maybe cut by that school, and I'm just like another coach, and how do you know that I'm telling you the truth? Call our guys and see if what I'm telling you is garbage. And I think the transfer finds a lot of value in that, but our players, they feel extremely respected, that we are doing every bit of intention to not sacrifice that culture, and not put ourselves as a program in a detrimental position. You just got to find balance in those things. So, but again, we're valuing and prioritizing the high school kid more than anything. And we get a lot more opportunities to go out and assess them. Get to go out and watch them play all summer, get to follow them in the spring, off season. We just got so much time to make sure the guy's right. Whereas the transfer, like, there's a lot of due diligence, a lot of homework, a little risk associated. But again, like, I feel like we've done a really good job, more because we've involved our players. Like, we had a guy say, well, what do you think? And I said, I don't know, man, get on the phone with him. Like, he said he wanted to talk to you. Like, don't reach out to him. Let him reach out to you. If he DMs you on Twitter or whatever. And I said, but, you guys are similar backgrounds. So he asked if we had a guy similar to him. I said, you. And basically, if you guys touch base, your decision, man. Like, you're a senior, you've been here, you're similar background as this kid, and your reference kind of dictates how we go forward, and our players love and respect that, and I know they do.
So I mean, my next question, you bring up a lot lately about how the players really have their hands on this program. It's their program. And I know that you guys do a really good job managing them. How do they do with the management of Chiefs and Indians? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, no, I just think I think at some point, I think they have some feel in separating that, like, we're the coaches, and, like, hey, we asked them to perform X, Y, and Z, and they got to do it, right? I think they've developed a lot more feel and maybe when to ask questions. I think they've learned to love the younger guys, even if they're a little imperfect sometimes in doing that, because, you're asking guys who sometimes have never led before to lead, right? So I think there's just a lot of balance and a lot of feel with it, and it just goes back to, like, the educational part and the mentorship of it.
Right.
It's giving them that perspective, and I think that's ultimately is what allows it to separate. But essentially, that they know at the end of the day that our intentions are right, they're genuine. Yes, we're going to make mistakes, but you can't let everything over here sacrifice based off maybe this one instance of where we messed up in a game, messed up in a practice, messed up in the planning of something, right? Like, we're human. We're going to make those mistakes, but I think our guys just have a lot of trust and a lot of feel, and there's always going to be curiosity, but it never crosses the line of, like, okay, what are we doing? But again, I think that's just a byproduct for our older guys understanding.
Do you think that helps contribute to the massive buy-in that you have at Lake Erie? Because like you said, you guys buy in all the time, right? A massive buy-in. So that's where I thought it would come from. Because I think one of the hardest things, from my point of view, I'm not a college coach, so I don't know it. But from the outside looking in, getting a freshman to transition and buy into your program and really understand what it means to be where you're at, I feel like that could be challenging. So maybe that helps you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it just gives them I think it just gives them some internal motivators of, like, man, they actually do care about us.
Yeah.
Like, they actually care about us and our well-beings and how we're getting better. And, I mean, don't let it fool you, man. Like, we got to get on our guys. We're harsh on them sometimes, but that's what it requires.
Oh, yeah. I mean, every team, right?
It requires to be like that and maybe have, your little moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you do it without sacrificing the relationship along the way,
Sure.
and they know that. So
Yeah, players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? It's
well,
the
and
old
at
saying,
the end of the fall, man, I mean, we do like a player eval sheet, so we want to see the game through their eyes. Who do you feel our captain, well, quote unquote captains are? We haven't named captains. I mean, I think players know who they need to go to.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think just getting an idea, I think it's a good opportunity for a player to maybe promote that unsung hero that you weren't expecting to see that name. But, like, hey, who do you feel are our best 12 pitchers? Like, what's your lineup if you played tomorrow? Who are your best hitters, hardest workers, best teammates? Any concerns, coaches, teammates, player, anything, right? What are your concerns? We just do an entire player eval sheet, and, like, that allows us to ask questions. It allows us to get on the same page from a systematic standpoint and philosophy. Like, guys already know what their job is, quote unquote, and what they're responsible to do to get on the field and help us win. But the player eval sheet kind of gives us a good conversation. Okay, did you execute your job? Did you not? If you didn't, why? If you did, what are you going to do to keep it? And it also gives guys to promote their teammates. And I think that's extremely valuable. And let's say we have that young guy who maybe thinks he might be the worst player in baseball because freshmen put immense pressure on themselves because I think of what they are seeing every single day. So it gives us a great opportunity to get that guy to be extremely confident and be like, hey, man, like, you're, like, on everybody's top 12, like, vote list and maybe on our staff. And they're like, really? We're like, yeah, man. you got great stuff, you got good this, good that, like, you got one thing right now, you don't have experience, right? But there's a lot of things that we can control right now that can make you really good, and we essentially don't want to see you get in your own way. And on the position player side, it's the same thing. It's like, hey man, like, you're so like, did I get the hit or did I not? It's more like, did you execute within the role that we need you to get on the field? And you're like, well, yeah, I think I did. And it's like, cool, man, you just got to keep learning. Or hey, like, sometimes it's, be ready to go. You got to prepare as if you're the best player. But I just think our young guys did a really good job, and it provided just so much perspective to them. And then for older guys, I think it keeps them honest, keeps them accountable, keeps them in check, and essentially we all need to be rowing the same boat in the same direction. And it makes us aware of maybe a guy who might not be doing that, whether he's doing it intentionally or not. But I think there's some character development along the way there too. So.
Yeah, and it makes all the sense in the world. So obviously talk about how some of the freshmen come in and, they just put so much pressure on themselves. What would you say to the high school junior who wants to be recruited, that goes through the process? What advice would you give to those players, or maybe something that you wish they knew more?
I just wish that they knew more about college baseball is hard, and that older guy that maybe comes back to the facility over winter break and gets to hang out with you, he's a really good player. He's a junior now in his college. That guy had to learn a ton as a freshman. That guy probably struggled too. That guy probably had to go through some fear and some doubt. So I essentially don't want them to lose sight of like, hey man, what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, it's normal. And I'm just letting you know that there's tons of ways to overcome it. And I just think that they need to understand that guys have been in their shoes before. They're not the only guy going through this right now. And I think that they just need to trust the guys that they're getting after it with, trust the coaches that make themselves available to them, and just trust the course, man. Ride the wave, and just trust the outcomes on the other side. Like, if you have good preparation, if you are working hard, if you are making yourself available and a good communicator, and you value the classroom and things like that, like, good things happen to good people. So don't lose sight of it. There's always going to be bumps in the road, and that's what I would tell the young high school guy right now, is just stay the course and don't get caught up in things that essentially don't matter. What matters is what you're trying to do with your development and how available you're becoming, and how much you're going to work and buy in, and just help guys around you. So
I really like that, actually. That was really good.
Yeah, no, it's great answer. So the next thing, as far as with the high school player, so you come out to everything. It's incredible how hard you work in the summertime. I so highly respect it. You show up to the field, what are you looking for? What is that thing that player can do that catches your attention? Go into a little bit of what you're looking for when you show up.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, what we're looking for is probably going to vary from recruiting class to recruiting class, right? Like, probably need some more positional base here in the 25 class, and then like 26-wise, we'll have to circle back more on the pitching staff and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think it all just depends on what we're looking for. But, if it's a position player, obviously we need to see how he's playing and how that gets married into our play style with maybe the defensive position that he plays. Is he center fielder? Is he a shortstop? Is he a corner guy? Does he have the traits of what we're looking for? So I think it's just evaluating, does it fit systematically how we like to go about things and how we like to identify jobs within our program. On the pitching staff, it's obvious. Guys got to be pounding the zone. I mean, velo matters. I mean, we have two sophomores, 95, 96, right? So, I mean, we have guys with velo, but on the flip side, like, we got to see what the off speed looks like. The run game still matters, being able to control the game, giving your catchers a shot. So, obviously, hands-on evaluation, there's a lot that goes into that, but, things that just stand out are the hustle plays, the hustle doubles. It's crazy to me how many guys actually don't run the hard 90s on routine. And it's like, well, we're playing a bunch, and I had this camp, I had this showcase. It's like, okay, well, you guys signed up for that stuff. I know you're tired, but, like, you guys still have to essentially perform for the things that you are aspiring to achieve. So, need guys to run hard 90s, need communication, the ability to pick up their teammates, to have buy-in with the coaches. Essentially just enjoy being on the baseball field. I feel like we're able to see who treats baseball as a job and who treats baseball as just like a fun lifestyle and a fun habit. So I mean, that's always intriguing to us in the recruitment side. But physically, actual evaluations of the ball strike, the hit, the swing and miss, the chase, the body, obviously that's just gonna we'll keep that to maybe what we value positionally, and we'll talk more about those those things with those players and why maybe we initially reached out and what we'll lose in graduation and how they're going to fit within that. I feel like that part takes care of itself, but just those unwritten rules, man, just like how well do they take care of them? When they cheer, do they keep it on their dugout? And don't let it fool you, man. We've had some guys have a lack of feel, but I think guys forget that our average age was like 19 and something months old for like a year and a half. So there's a little immaturity there, and I think we've done a pretty good job in being a little harsh about it with some of our guys, and some of them I think again just teaching them the perspective, but it's just getting them to all understand, high school guys too, is just like, hey, this is what we do here. Can't speak for anybody else, but this is what we do here. I think it's a good fit for X, Y, and Z, and just you just kind of let the process play out. We've lost some good players to other programs, but we've also landed some really good players too. And I think it's just a byproduct of actually going out and putting the time in.
To kind of piggyback off your question, or actually your answer and Doug's question, can you maybe hit on the not responsibility, but how important it is when you say things like that, like you're going out and looking for certain things because, some guys are moving out. You might need some, guys in the infield. Can you maybe hit on how important it is for the high schooler to see what schools need guys in certain places, especially where their expertise are?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, it just goes back to looking at the roster, right? If they say that they have they need a middle infielder, right, and you go on and there's 13 of them, well, ask more questions,
Right.
But we have a certain style we like to play. We like to play fast. We like to play aggressive. We like to play in a pressure style type offense, and that was something that I've been fortunate to adopt just based on my experiences at Eastern, the relationships I've been able to connect with guys here in our state, having just good hitting minds to learn from and bounce ideas from. And essentially we have to recruit within that. We need guys who can play into 4 different offensive categories, and obviously we evaluate the defensive side on the other side of that. But we know what we're looking for, and we'll share that, I guess, those expectations within those players, and the outliers of maybe if it's maybe not that speed type profile. I mean, left-handed hitter, he's raking, he can thump, he's going to be that extra base hit, RBI type of guy for you. So we essentially got to see like where is the risk or the risk and reward, and maybe the outlier to that system. But there's a place for all those types of players. We just got to make sure that the number makes sense on the roster, and we got to make sure that we actually have a need, because we can display that, so like recruiting wise right now with pitchers, it's simple. We have 1 senior on our staff, so our pitching staff is very young, very talented. We have a lot of guys in the sophomore class who's doing a really good job. We got some freshmen, had some good falls. We got some juniors who are owning their game too, and our 1 senior he is the advertisement of what it means to be a dominant pitcher at our school. The jumps he's made since I've met him is incredible. But telling the high school guy, it's like, hey, this is why we still need arms in the class, even though we have 1 senior. These freshmen still lack a ton of experience. We had some guys get hurt before even arriving to campus. That changes personnel. It changes game plan in a little bit. And I hate to say it, man, you always got to prepare in case you do lose that 1 guy. I feel confident within that, but we also don't want to be stuck in a position where we maybe have to go outside of character and not value the high school guy. Like, it's the last thing we want to do. We always want to value the high school guys. So that's kind of how we'll approach it and dive into it more. Hopefully that answers the question. And
Yeah, no,
expands on that
absolutely.
more.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say you've upgraded the talent level there as a coaching staff at Lake Erie.
I would say so.
Yeah. You guys have been young, so as you're bringing a big group back, what are you the most excited about for this spring with Lake Erie?
I just think the trust that they have in themselves. I think when you got to play 7 freshmen in your lineup 2 years ago, and you got, like, I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 of our starters were true freshmen, right? Like, and they're failing and they're getting beat and they're, it's nothing too positive, right? Well, I think they're finally just, like I said earlier, they're starting to understand it. So I just think the trust that they have in themselves as an individual and how they can pour that into their teammates, I think that's my favorite thing about this, is their actual belief. Any player is gonna run into some uncertainty. I feel like that's human nature, but how anxious I am to see them actually stay the course and continue to buy into each other and maybe overcome that big inning that we didn't a year ago, or to make that play that we didn't maybe a year ago, or to get that big hit with guys on base. and there's 2 outs and you're on the road, those are the things that I anxiously await for. And we got a taste of it last year. We had split with number 5 University of Indianapolis. They had went back to the World Series. Good coaching staff over there. Nothing but respect to Coach Al Reddy. It's obviously where Landon had worked as a pitching guy prior. So I've met Al kind of through Landon. Nothing but respect to him. But it's cool to go on the road and split with those guys. You're 5th in the country, and you're essentially mostly a freshman and sophomore-based team with a couple sprinkles of upperclassmen in there that we're impacting, right? And then, shout out to Ashland. Like, they always have a good program, very respectable. I respect Coach Shalley, and I felt like we maybe gave them some games because our guys, they're used to just, we're actually in the ball game. Well, hopefully their maturity and their trust to themselves allow them to maybe make that extra play that's needed to just compete consistently better in those types of big series. We had split with Trevecca Nazarene, who, great program, Chase, their head coach. I mean, awesome. Got to meet him again through Landon. But, man, guy's an awesome character. They had hosted us last year. It was our first conference series. It was, literally 2-3 days after splitting with UND in a midweek, so it was great for us. But we went down there and split with them, had a true freshman throw CG against them. They went on to win the conference. Like, our guys see we've had a lot of tastes of beating ranked opponents. We've had a taste of beating teams who have competed in the regional. But now it's time to essentially just take care of our business more, and obviously experience helps with that. But having trust in yourself, man, that's the separator. Having that mental conviction, being able to, in the right way, say, I'm the guy and I'm going to get this done for us. Yeah. And I'm going to do it for the guys, behind me, next to me, the coaches that trust me, who've put me in this position, who've helped me. And I think selfishly for the right reasons. You can't lose sight of the work you put in to put yourself in that moment too. You visualized it a billion times, now go do it. So
right. From being a viewer that's viewing us now, that's watching this, and listening to the amount of sentiment that you've put towards with Lake Erie, you can tell this is a strong program. And every recruiting coordinator we've had on here previously, we've had Ben, from Defiance, Ben Babcock, and then we've had Travis Farrick from Wright State. And now having you, I would like to ask you this question as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the tradition at Lake Erie, what it is that you provide traditionally for your students and your athletes?
You're talking more on the academic scale, baseball
I guess
side?
on the baseball side, because, at the high school level, we have certain things and traditions that we do every year to get us ready for season. I just kind of want to see what it is that you guys do on the college side.
Yeah, on the academic side, right, like I feel like they have plenty of events that they run on campus. Like they have a day called Mountain Day, so it's a giant community service day on campus in the fall. We try to not get it twisted of it's just a free day off from classes. I think it's a good day to actually go out and provide a good image to the program and, get your community service work in. And yes, I know it's annoying, fellas. I know that they like take bagpipes into the dorms. That's how they wake people up. It's like, guys, I know that it's annoying because they woke you up super early or they're asking you to do this you've never learned, but it's just like, man, go learn something new and go do it for good reasons. And again, that just goes back to the teaching part. I think administratively, I think we have good support system. So I feel like there's just been a lot of change at Lake Erie to help ensure that it's going to be better. We've had new president who, I'm a little biased. She was at Hiram when I was at Hiram, so I got to see her do really cool things there. Jen Schuler, so I got to see her do some really cool stuff there. And seeing her at Lake Erie, we love and trust Jen. And Jen we trust, as I like to jokingly say. And, I know Landon, I'll speak for Landon, he feels the same way. Our AD does a good job in supporting our program. I would say traditionally with our program, though, I feel like the whys is a good part and just like providing perspective. I think the mission statement of play for those before you. I feel like those little intrinsic things I think we're able to sprinkle in throughout our day-to-day. So I just think with how much new this has been and how much new on an admin side there has been, I think we're kind of in that new growing phase of like, what does it mean to actually attend here? What does it actually mean to play here? So hopefully that I don't think there's like set, but I think this is how we're going to achieve X, Y, and Z, and this is what we're going to put at the forefront so we can do the X, Y, Z long term.
Right.
And that's both academically, administratively, and then obviously with our program. So, and we're going to make winning matter in literally everything from grades to on the field to off the field to the job world. I mean, yeah, win in everything that you do.
Absolutely. So my last question, I like to ask this question to guys. So obviously, I love this game. Go to ABCA, go to the state clinic. If there was one thing about the game that you could change right now with where we currently sit, what would that thing be?
Look at the face on that one.
You know, that's a tough question. I do think that is a tough question. I just think there's pros and cons for a reason, and I feel like there's people making decisions that are maybe sometimes, you know, just better than me and smarter than me, and I think sometimes we just got to conform and maybe trust that. So I feel like that's a really hard question. I just think as humans, though, and as coaches, I think we just got to continue to be adaptive, obviously, into a certain point, and as long as it can put kids in a good position, put coaches in a good position, I don't think that's really my place to maybe challenge those things respectively.
Well, that about wraps us up for today. Episode 9 is a total wrap. We just wanted to reiterate how much we appreciate you coming on with us today. You answered our questions greatly. Doug, is there anything you'd like to add before we go ahead and close out?
Nope. Bring me a hat to ABCA so we can do a hat swap.
For sure. Yeah,
we're gonna have that one primed.
I'll get it cleared by our head coach first. So when he's listening to this, he knows I'm gonna ask him. So we'll get it cleared up.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate that. And if you guys would like to see more stuff like this, you can follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. I'm also looking into the iHeartRadio, so just keep your eyes open for that one. And to also see our updates, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All right, boys, that's a wrap.
Awesome.
It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time. Slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.